Today, we will recap the 2015 sci-fi adventure movie called Tomorrowland, where a young girl finds a pin that takes her into another world. So let's get started. The story begins in 1964 when a young Frank Walker enters the inventors competition. Frank presents his jetpack to the judge, David Nix, who rejects it since it doesn't work. Nix's secretary, Athena, asks Frank if he is the one who made it and why, so he sarcastically responds that he had to, as he couldn't wait for anyone else to do it for him. Nix disqualifies Frank from the contest unless the jetpack works. As a result, Frank sits disappointed on a bench outside. Athena approaches and hands him a lapel pin with the letter T on it. She asks him to follow her team without getting noticed. Later, as they ride a boat, Frank sneaks onto a nearby boat, where a sensor scans his pin and transports him to a dark hallway. It creates a digital path to a compartment, and as Frank gets in, metal shades cover the windows and doors. The compartment then starts to shake, and Frank falls. After a few seconds, the doors open, and Frank enters Tomorrowland, an advanced city featuring futuristic architecture, flying vehicles, innovative gadgets, and robots. A robot, upon detecting the fault in his jetpack, fixes it, but a few men startle him and he falls. Luckily, he can now use his working jetpack and starts flying. Upon seeing Nix, Frank lands in front of him to show the jetpack, but Nix ignores him. However, Athena shows him the city, indicating what his life from then on would be like. Fast forward to 2015, a teenage girl, Casey, breaks into a NASA site to save her dad's job, as the site is about to be demolished. She malfunctions the cranes required to demolish and escapes. Meanwhile, Athena silently observes her, and as Casey returns home, Athena embeds Casey's DNA from her hair strand into the last Tomorrowland pin. The following day, Casey's dad, Eddie Newton, learns that the faulty cranes will be replaced. He tells Casey it's unavoidable, but she advises him to stay hopeful. That night, Casey revisits NASA, but this time, she gets caught. Eddie comes to bail her out, and while leaving, she discovers a pin in her belongings. As she touches the pin, she gets transported to a field in front of Tomorrowland. This startles her, causing the pin to fall from her hand, and she returns to the police station. Upon picking up the pin, she's transported again and starts walking in the field. However, she bumps into things as her real body is still at the police station. This causes the pin to fall, and she comes back to the real world. She holds the pin with a bubble wrap while Eddie waits for her at the entrance so he can take her back home. On their way, Eddie scolds her, but she ignores him and asks if he's aware of the pin, suggesting he should touch it for an explanation. However, when Eddie holds the pin, nothing happens. Casey again touches it and experiences the same vision. She creates a disturbance, so Eddie takes the pin from her and places it in his pocket. Later, while Eddie is fast asleep, Casey grabs the pin from his drawer. To prevent hitting things, she goes to an empty field and grips the pin with her hand, landing in Tomorrowland. Casey realizes that she's invisible and begins exploring Tomorrowland. While doing so, she spots a group of young scientists and walks to join them, but a timer behind her pin starts counting down. She feels her feet submerged in water, and the timer suddenly stops. She returns to the real world and finds herself standing in a lake. Casey reaches home and asks her little brother, Nate, for help to unlock their father's computer. After doing some research, she finds a shop online interested in buying the pin. Nate asks her where she is going, and she says she might have seen the future, but needs to confirm things. She asks her brother to tell their father that she's camping with her friends and leaves. Afterward, Athena visits Nate and forces him to tell her Casey's whereabouts, claiming she's from the future. On the other hand, Casey reaches the store and meets a couple who describe Tomorrowland as a futuristic place devoid of greed and government. It was secretly created by geniuses known as Plus Ultra, who wanted freedom to work, and the sole entry is through a pin. Curious about Casey's pin, the couple asks where she got it from. When Casey claims to be clueless, they point plasma-filled guns at her. She tries to hide, but the couple finds her. Right at this moment, a grenade comes in and freezes the couple in their position. Athena comes in and tells Casey that it's a time bomb and won't last long, so they'll have to run. But unfortunately, Casey's hand also gets frozen. Athena helps Casey to pull out her hand, but this causes the bomb to melt and brings the couple back to life. A fight ensues, and when Athena decapitates the woman, Casey realizes they are audio animatronics. Both the robots fall to the ground, and Athena shouts at Casey to run as the robots are about to self-destruct. Casey and Athena rush out of the store, and it explodes behind them. Athena breaks the window of a car, opens the door, and sits on the driving seat, urging Casey to sit beside her. Athena notices a malfunction in her body and repairs herself with a tool. Upon seeing this, Casey realizes Athena is also an audio animatronic. Frightened, she puts her feet on the brake, stops the car, and rushes out. Athena follows her and gets hit by a truck. The driver rushes to check on her, and Casey drives off in his truck. On the road, Athena wakes up and jumps onto Casey's truck. She shatters the rear glass, enters the vehicle, and locks Casey inside with her. She claims that Casey can't run with the only pin remaining, and explains that they need to head to Tomorrowland as they have created something they shouldn't have. On the other side, while cops are inspecting the blown-up shop, they find a burnt, humanistic robotic head. An audio animatronic named Dave comes and presents himself as a Secret Service agent. Upon seeing the robot head, Dave vanishes the officers with his gun and orders his men to tell Governor Nix that the girl has been found. Meanwhile, Athena asks Casey to drive off and meet the only man who can help, Frank Walker, in Pittsfield, New York. Casey bombards her with questions, and Athena shuts down, saying she's not allowed to answer so many questions. Casey reaches a phone booth and leaves a voicemail for Eddie, telling him she'll return soon. After a while, Athena wakes up and they exchange seats. Athena starts driving while Casey dozes off on the way. Later, Casey wakes up as Athena pushes her out of the car in front of Frank's place and drives off. Casey sees a dog chasing her and falls, only to realize the dog is a hologram since it has no footprints. She then knocks on Frank's door and shows him the pin through CCTV, demanding to take her to Tomorrowland. A strong wind pushes her to the ground, and an old Frank comes asking about Athena. Casey explains that Athena left, and Frank gets angry. He tells her to go back home since whatever she's been experiencing is fake, and Tomorrowland is not real. What she saw was a recorded advertisement, and then Frank returns back home. As night falls, Casey sets the plowing machine on fire. Frank rushes to stop it, and Casey sneaks in, locking him outside. In his home, all of his inventions amaze Casey, and when Frank knocks, she uses the wind to push him. Casey goes into his room that has a timer ticking and screens showing the news. As she observes, Frank gets in through a secret door under the stairs. He wants to kick her out, but then decides to tell her he made something he shouldn't have and got kicked out of Tomorrowland. He asks if Casey wants to know the date she'll die, and she agrees but says it might cause her death because they're supposed to create their destinies. This drops the probability percentage of the world ending in 58 days. Suddenly, Dale and his team surround the house looking for Casey, and as they get in, some get electrocuted and some are broken by Frank. When Dale points a gun at Frank, Casey hits him with a bat and he falls. Then Frank and Casey lie in a bathtub and Frank turns it into a capsule. He launches it and lands in a lake from where Athena picks them up in her truck. Once inside, Frank and Athena start arguing, and Frank gets furious because Athena has still not stopped recruiting people for Tomorrowland. He asks Athena how she still has the pins since all of them were to be destroyed, but she reveals she escaped with a dozen and Casey has the last one. Casey interrupts, telling Frank to stop questioning Athena or she might shut down. Frank discloses that Athena can't shut down and she lied to ignore Casey. They reach Frank's wire station, which has a capsule that is connected to his house and can transmit to humans. As they proceed, Frank tells Casey that Athena is only a program, and all her kindness is there to lure people. This hurts Athena, but she ignores it, and they enter the capsule. After wearing the necessary gear for humans, they get transmitted to the top of the Eiffel Tower. There, Casey takes a gadget from Frank and knocks out a guard. After that, they enter a room where they see wax figures of Edison, Tesla, Verne, and Eiffel, the first 4+ Ultras. Frank informs Casey that these four started Tomorrowland by activating the Eiffel Tower as an antenna to go there. Frank activates it, splitting the tower in two from the middle, and a rocket emerges. Upon seeing this, robots come to stop the rocket, but Casey, Frank, and Athena enter it and shut the doors. The rocket launches and robots fall off while the trio enters Tomorrowland through another dimension. Upon reaching there, Tomorrowland is shown to be destroyed. Frank notices Governor Nix coming in his train and hurriedly gives a 1-kiloton detonation bomb to Athena to hide in herself. Nix comes with his team, greets Athena and Frank, and asks them the reason for their arrival. Frank informs him about the percentage drop, stating Casey can save the world. Nix takes them to Frank's invention, in which energy funnels through tachyon, a particle faster than light. They go up to the tachyon tower on a platform, and Casey sees holograms of her next actions on the way. Upon reaching the tower's center, Frank shows Casey his special invention, which only works with his algorithm, and they can use it to see anywhere in the world. Casey figures out how it works and sees herself with her dad from 3 days back. This surprises her, and she realizes they can see the future too. She moves forward and sees war-torn countries, tsunamis, and the effects of climate change. Frank explains that according to the machine, the world will end in 58 days. Upon being asked by Casey why Nix is not doing anything to stop it, Nix says he doesn't care about Earth since it is Earth that will end, not Tomorrowland. Furthermore, he believes humans will do the same thing to Tomorrowland that they did to their world. Casey shouts that she's not ready to accept it, and for a moment, they see a better world around them. Frank tries to convince Nix there's still hope, but Nix knocks him off with his gadget. Later, Frank wakes up, and Athena informs him they'll be deported. As they start to comfort Casey, she accuses them of lying to her, but while ranting, an idea pops up. She tells Frank he's been receiving a signal from another dimension in his home, which means the signal travels on Earth and forces people to think destruction will happen. Casey calls it a self-fulfilling prophecy and suggests that turning off the signal might help people see the positive side. They come to Nix, who is ready to deport them through a portal, and reveal Casey's discovery to him. Nix replies that there is no off button for the tachyon tower signals, and Frank realizes that Nix is deliberately putting the idea of destruction in people's minds. Nix explains that throughout history, when someone suggested to governments and rulers that the world would end, it was ignored. He defends his actions by stating that introducing the idea to people was meant for them to recognize the harm they were causing. Nix points out issues like melting glaciers, animal extinction, obesity, and starvation as signs that should have started a change. However, he argues that humanity accepted its downfall instead, and hence, people are responsible for their destruction. Frank shouts at Athena to take the 1-kiloton bomb and get on the platform, but Nix activates 2 robots to stop Athena. Casey climbs the platform and, using holograms, learns how to arm the bomb, but Nix halts the platform, making it fall, to save herself. Casey jumps off while losing the bomb. On the other hand, Nix and Frank exit the portal while fighting, and Athena has to close the portal to defeat a robot. She closes the portal, making Nix and Frank stuck outside the portal. Inside, Casey finds the bomb with only 30 seconds left. Athena opens the portal, yelling for Frank to come in, and throws the bomb outside. Frank and Nix return and the bomb explodes, but a piece of portal falls on Nix. Athena sees the future, where Nix aims to shoot Frank from underneath, and she steps in to save Frank. Frank wants to take Athena to the repair center, but she stops him because of time constraints. Athena shows Frank a vision from the past when she didn't want to hurt him by revealing she's a robot. She confesses she knew he had feelings for her, admitting that Frank made her feel emotions a robot shouldn't feel. She advises Casey and Frank to stay united and suggests using her self-destruct feature to destroy the tower. Frank uses a jetpack to reach the tower's center, where Athena and Frank bid farewell. Then he tosses Athena into the center, and she self-destructs, causing the signals to turn off. Frank falls into the river, and Casey rushes to check on him. They sit under a tree and observe holograms from the future. Frank decides to repair the portal, making Casey head back home and reunite with her family. Moreover, she recruits her father as an engineer for Tomorrowland. Ultimately, Casey and Frank work together to restart the PIN program and develop robots like Athena, aiming to create a brighter future. Please make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.